Hello and welcome to the Print Live. We are here with our state correspondents who traveled extensively across states to get you ground stories and real voices from different states. We have with us Nikhil Rampal, who covered Punjab extensively. We have Manasi Phadke, who traveled across Goa to get you ground and real stories from the state, as well as Prithvi, who is covering Uttarakhand for us. At the same time, we have Angana, who has been traveling across Manipur. You must have seen her stories on our website. Please also welcome Shikha Salaria, who is our Uttar Pradesh correspondent. You must have read her stories too. We will try and understand and speak to them. What does today's victory mean for the Bharatiya Janata Party, Aam Aadmi Party? What does it mean for the Congress? And at the same time, what are the key takeaways from 2022 assembly elections? Let me begin with Shikha Salaria. Shikha, we saw BJP is back again with a thumping sort of a majority. Final numbers are yet to come in, but we can definitely say that this is a big victory for PM Modi as well as Uttar Pradesh Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath. What do you think are the key takeaways?
Neelam, the key takeaways, if I have to begin with, I will definitely start from Yogi Adityanath, who is set to, return as the CM for the second time, in the history of Uttar Pradesh. From his speech itself, I'm going to give you the takeaways. He goes on to mention PM Modi, his charm. He also goes on to mention the Sushasan narrative. Along with that, he mentions, the work being done by his own government, despite of the fact that he had so many detractors also targeting him repeatedly. That's what he has to say. It clearly, the confidence reflects in his speech, and the way BJP has taken forward this whole narrative of development coupled with Hindutva, as well as the central leadership also putting in all its weight behind the state leadership. I think it all worked for the BJP on the ground, and we could see how it is already showing that the leads we are getting is the 252 seats already. The BJP is showing its lead on, out of which 100 seats have already been won by the BJP. So we clearly are witnessing a thumping majority for the BJP, although it definitely has sobered down from its erstwhile number of 312, which was a massive mandate in itself. But yes, the BJP is coming back with a thumping majority, and it only reflects in the state leadership's confidence that was exhibited during the speech of the Chief Minister.
And it is also for the first time that an incumbent government has returned to power, and a Chief Minister, we will be seeing Yogi Adityanath leading the state once again. So that in itself is a big victory for the Bharatiya Janata Party. I will now move on to Punjab, a big day for the Aam Aadmi Party. Nikhil, you traveled across Punjab. We have seen your ground ground reportage. So what are your initial thoughts?
My initial thoughts that this was expected, right? Punjab votes for change. Ever since the state has been voting for political parties in every election, it has been voting for change, right? It was only in 2012 that it did not vote for change because there was significant economic development. That is a separate story. However, in 2017, they voted for change, but they did not receive the change that they wanted to see. So that the pressure had accumulated over the last 2-3 decades because the state had stopped growing economically and it was affecting people socially. So what we found from the ground was that there was a heavy anti-incumbency, and people had made up their mind, right? So they had seen both the governments of the Akali Dal and the governments of the Congress party, and the whole sloganeering of Ik Mauka Kejriwal, that gave Kejriwal a chance, actually turned out to be very well, because they now want to see what change can this guy or this party bring in Punjab. So it was expected that Punjab will vote for change. But there were so many surprises this time. Shiromani Akali Dal had joined the BSP, and Captain Amrinder Singh was on the posters of the BJP, which was not expected. So there were a couple of things. But the change was the only constant in Punjab elections this time. And you are looking at change right now. I've never seen a majority that big in Punjab, and a new party trying to make up things in Punjab. It's a huge significant development. But it was expected that there will be change.
Please also welcome Abhishek Dey, who tracks the Aam Aadmi Party for us. Abhishek, already a question for you. Can Kejriwal become PM after Modi quits, maybe in 2029 or 2034?
Important question. Kejriwal in his victory speech today has made it very clear that, the Aam Aadmi Party is no longer a party, it's a revolution, and it started with Delhi, and now we are going to spread across the country. So his intentions are clear. There's no stopping him. Like with Punjab, the Aam Aadmi Party has ended up becoming the only non-BJP, non-Congress party in the country to rule more than one state. And the Aam Aadmi Party, since its inception in 2012, has always been very open about how India has been run by a handful of people and a handful of parties, and there has always been a political vacuum. And it has always presented that idea that it would try to shape itself up in some form or the other to fill up that political vacuum. So I think now Arvind Kejriwal clearly sees a chance for that. With Punjab, the party has got a big boost that way. They are going to invest on Gujarat next, and I think the next couple of months will be really, really interesting with that, like in that regard.
Well, moving on to Goa, Manasi, all the exit polls have predicted, there will be a close fight. We had already witnessed, and you reported also that, Congress had got all their candidates, they were parked in resorts. Yeah. Yes. So, but what happened today? We see that BJP has done quite well.
Yes, actually, on ground, there was a very strong anti-incumbency sentiment against the current government, and many from within the government had also admitted to the fact that there is a strong anti-incumbency. But at the same time, right, even before the election, the BJP, the seat-by-seat arithmetic of the BJP actually seems to have worked in its favor, where it dropped certain people who then rebelled and contested as independents, but it picked certain people. Basically, winnability was the key criteria, and the BJP approached the election in this manner. Secondly, if you see their vote share, last in 2017, it was around 33%, 33 point something. Now it is 34 point something. So although the number of seats have gone up drastically from 13 in 2017 to 20 now, the vote share hasn't gone up to that effect, which clearly shows that all the anti-BJP votes were split, basically. I mean, otherwise, the anti-BJP vote share would have been significant. And the parties like TMC and also AAP to a certain extent, they fought this election keeping the 2024 Lok Sabha election in mind, keeping their national image in mind, rather than wanting to make inroads in the state, particularly the TMC. All this seems to have worked in the BJP's favor, and this is perhaps one of BJP's best performances in Goa.
Well, I already have a question for you, Manasi. Sankalp wants to know, how did Congress lost the plot in Goa? Mostly new candidates have won. Do you think Congress's blunder was giving tickets to BJP turncoats and newbies?
So basically, yeah, most of Congress's candidates were new, and that was not by design. It was by compulsion, because all of its old candidates were poached by the BJP. Congress almost had to go off to a fresh start, and in Goa, we've seen that personality dominates parties. Constituencies are small, and they tend to put their faith in candidates rather than parties. So having all new faces probably did not work, although this was an experiment, and it did not really reap goals for the Congress.
Well, Prithvi, we have witnessed that BJP has done quite well. Again, exit polls had predicted there will be a close fight in Uttarakhand, but despite all of that, BJP has done quite well. But the Chief Minister himself has lost, Pushkar Singh Dhami. You will have to unmute yourself. Yes.
Yeah, Neelam. If you could recall, when we were sitting with Harish Rawat few days back, we asked the same question: what will you do if there will be a close contest, just like what happened in 2012? Right. Harish Rawat said we will be getting a better majority than what we got in 2012, and we will form the government. But then, as to the Uttarakhand's performance is concerned, we have to just take it. It's an extension of kind of a UP. What happened UP? It was pro-Hindutva plus a nationalist kind of feeling that people of Uttarakhand have got. They derive their say a nationalist feeling. In fact, almost as you know, BJP here in Uttarakhand, almost every second house has got one person in Indian Army or say in armed force personnel. People are driven by their nationalist feeling. So there were many things at one point during elections. There were some, if you could recall, Harish Rawat was being told by say one of the say Congress rebels. He started saying, BJP, if Congress comes to power, we will have a Muslim university. These were certain issues. BJP tried to cash upon it. So there were
polarization also played its part.
Yes, there was a sort of polarization. Then, if you could recall, the Dharm Sansad issue went on. That has also worked in favor of BJP. BJP tried to cash upon it, and they have managed to do that. But again, since it's a loss of say Pushkar Singh Dhami is a kind of a tradition that has been going on for the past 3 elections continuously, that sitting chief ministers are losing in Uttarakhand. This started from with BC Khanduri, and it is still going on. Of course, one of the things that was always there, that people of Uttarakhand never voted or re-voted any incumbent government, but say in the past. This happened this time. This jinx has been broken now. It has gone away. But then this particular jinx, what we are talking about, the sitting chief ministers are losing, they are losing.
Well, just to add, Prithvi and I, we traveled extensively across Uttarakhand, and one of the, key takeaways for me would be brand Modi. So, the fact that Pushkar Singh Dhami has lost today and by around, I think, 8,000 or 9,000 votes, it's a significant number. That shows that the entire campaign in Uttarakhand was also on, PM Modi's shoulder. Whether it was the posters, the publicity, the rallies that were, done by PM Modi, I would say that the Uttarakhand campaign, the fact that the BJP has done quite well, most of the credit will have to go to PM Modi and the way he ensured, the BJP's victory. Well, moving on to Manipur, Angana. What exactly has happened in Manipur? We know BJP has done well, but has it done enough to form the government on its own?
So as per the Election Commission's last updates, the party has managed to cross the majority mark of 31 with 20 wins and leads on 12 seats. So that's about 32 seats, which, as we can say, is a slight departure from the exit polls, because everybody was predicting a hung assembly, although somewhere in the ballpark of 25 to 28 seats for the BJP, but here the party has managed to sail past the majority mark without any sort of pre-poll alliances, with its alliance partners. As we know, it basically rebuked the NPP, the National People's Party, ahead of the assembly elections and decided to fight it out on all 60 seats. So what we see basically even on the ground is this very pro-incumbency factor has worked. The party, for the first time, I would say, Manipur has put all its thrust into campaigning, driving through with its development agenda. Even the narrative of polarization doesn't really work in the case of Manipur, because it's more or less a syncretic culture. The only divide exists between the hills and the valley seats, and between the tribals and the Meitei dominated populations. So in this case, the BJP really focused on development, ration, road connectivity, brought in ministers of various departments to come in and focus on the projects that will be undertaken in the state, where these things still remain an issue, where jobs remain an issue, road connectivity remains an issue. So I would say they've really pulled off a big win for the state.
Well, let me come back to Mansi. Mansi, there was a lot of talk about, Utpal Parikar. He was contesting. He also contested the assembly election this time. What happened there? You had written extensively about his journey and the fact that, it would not be an easy task for him.
Utpal Parikar actually put up a very good fight. He lost by just 800 votes, which is a fairly slim margin. And despite the sitting MLA Atanasio Monzaret, he won. And despite his victory, he also publicly admitted, he was a little sour about his victory, because he said that the party cadre in the constituency has not really accepted him. And there was they couldn't really do much damage control and ensure a smoother win for him, which shows that there were a lot of people backing Utpal Parikar, and perhaps if BJP had fielded him as its candidate from Punjab, he would have probably won, and with a wider margin as well. But BJP's decision to not field him had basically ramifications beyond just the Punjab constituency. That's the seat by seat arithmetic that I was talking about earlier.
Well, Abhishek, what does it mean for the Aam Aadmi Party? They already have a government in Delhi, now Punjab. They have been, looking at Uttarakhand, Goa. What does it mean? Gujarat also. So what does it mean for the party's national ambitions?
It's a very clear indication that, this winning Punjab is definitely going to have a significant bearing on the party's national ambitions. Winning Punjab has a kind of a very favorable impact, because winning Punjab makes any party a very important and integral part of the mainland political picture of India. Like Punjab is the part of the Indian political story. It's a mainland, and winning Punjab gives an edge to Mr. Arvind Kejriwal over other regional leaders such as Telangana's KCR or West Bengal's Mamata Banerjee, who too have been trying very hard for quite a while now to forge an anti-BJP, anti-Congress, coalition and united opposition kind of thing to take on the BJP in 2024. Winning Punjab gives Arvind Kejriwal a fair chance to project himself as the face of the opposition.
Right. Shikha, another question for you. A lot, we have spoken a lot about, CM Yogi's rise, but what does it mean as far as his national ambitions are concerned? We know that in 2024, the BJP will definitely go with PM Modi, but what about later? Does the party see him as the next PM candidate after Modi?
That's the very relevant and a question that is there on everybody's mind, Neelam. And I would like to tell you that if you ask the state party leadership, they just don't want to talk about it, because I would like to draw your attention to the very fact that today in his debut speech after winning a thumping majority once again, Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath goes on to thank Prime Minister Narendra Modi for the first. He's the first person that he wants to thank, and after that he goes on to mention the state presidents Swatantra Dev Singh, Amit Shah ji, and then he goes on to mention the Defense Minister Rajnath Singh as well. So I would want to, I want to share this with you that the state leadership, although does not want to talk about it, I have spoken to some leaders, but they definitely do admit that somewhere down the line, if after Modi there is one person who can, who they are looking at to play a sort of a bigger role on the central level, it has to be the Chief Minister of Uttar Pradesh, who is set to return and with a thumping majority after 37 years. It has never happened in the history of Uttar Pradesh. It is a record on its own. So this question is there on everybody's mind, and somewhere down the line, even within the BJP, there is a churning, although there are detractors who are against, who've been voicing their issues against Yogi Adityanath. But to be very frank, Yogi Adityanath has managed to quell all the rumors and all the detraction that he was facing all this while, especially that we witnessed after the election went into the third or the fourth phase, because the first two phases after that the election went into a different narrative, and we saw that the SP, the Samajwadi Party, was emerging as a party that which emerged as a major rival to the BJP, and at one point of time we also witnessed this narrative of how Akhilesh Yadav was projecting himself as the possible CM, but we've all seen what is happening on the ground. So Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath is definitely set for a massive role in the future.
Well, Nikhil, I would like to ask this question to you as well as a YouTube user. He says, West Bengal, Punjab, UP. It shows how much local recruits matter. Now, Congress almost lost most as grassroots workers. What future Congress hold in 2024? I'm asking you in terms of Punjab. the fact that Charanjit Singh Channi, he contested from 2 seats, he was quite confident. He has, I think the result has still officially not been announced, but I think he has lost from both the seats. So what does it mean for the Congress, considering, they were quite confident of coming to power?
See, I think let's go back to history a bit for this, right? So in 2014 Lok Sabha elections, that was the first time when Aam Aadmi Party was also contesting, a national election. I think it won 4 Lok Sabha assembly seats in Punjab. So it's not that Punjab was very popular among the Congress party. In 2019, again, they voted against the BJP, but the AAP wave had somehow simmered down. So it's not that the Aam Aadmi Party doesn't have stake in Punjab's Lok Sabha elections. The Congress party faces a tough competition now that Aam Aadmi Party has risen to power. Right. So second thing is that now the fate of Congress party not only depends on how it performs, how it manages to convince people across, the state. It also depends on how the Aam Aadmi Party works for the state of Punjab. So the better the Punjab government, the new Aam Aadmi Party-led Punjab government works in the first 2 years, it performs and it starts delivering all the promises that it has made, the higher are the chances that it will become tough and tough for the Congress party to come back to the state and hold it as one of its only anti-Modi state, and hold it as a rein that okay, that this is the state that we can trust on when it comes to Lok Sabha. They might not be able to do it if Aam Aadmi Party starts delivering on its promises within the first 2 years of its power.
Well, coming back to Uttarakhand, what exactly will happen as far as the chief ministership is concerned? Dhami has lost. Will the BJP still retain him as the chief minister, or will we now see this fight for the chief ministership, Prithvi? You'll have to unmute yourself, Prithvi.
Yeah, Neelam, this is again a big question. But then initially, say when we started talking to the people, even their state in charge, Mr. Gautam, he himself has said that they will retain Chief Minister, Pushkar Singh Dhami as the Chief Minister. But then yet final decision is yet to come. Nobody can say whether party is going to stamp on his name or not. But then we are getting news. We are getting our close BJP leaders. They are telling that in fact they are like BJP is likely to stay with Pushkar Singh Dhami only. But then still final decision is yet to come, and then we cannot say because there are people like there are senior aspirants also, like Rajya Sabha member Mr. Baluni is there. Then Nishank, former union minister, they had been already lobbying there, and they are putting forward themselves as the future chief minister also. Then again, there are the names like former chief minister, even he himself, though he hasn't contested elections, but he's still there. His name is being considered.
Right.
People are talking about his name. So nothing is final yet, but then still we believe BJP may go with Pushkar Singh Dhami.
Mansi, another question for you. Sumanta Singha wants to know, what is the future of TMC in Goa? And if you can also talk about how exactly have they fared?
TMC's campaign started on a very high note. They entered Goa, frankly, quite late, considering that they really wanted to contest. So the campaign seemed to emerge from the ambition of projecting itself as a national alternative to the Congress rather than as a real alternative to the people of Goa, because they actually came to Goa around August, September. They started they fueled the whole culture of defections in Goa by breaking up parties and taking imports from other parties. And the campaign sort of ended on a very, very low note. Mamata Banerjee didn't even come in the last phase of campaigning to Goa. And we saw that a number of leaders who had initially joined the TMC decided to part ways with it, saying that, the official reason that they gave was, many of them gave was that when we go to talk to our voters, they say that this is an outsider party and we don't want to be associated with an outsider party tag. But actually, whatever the TMC said that they would deliver to these candidates, they were unable to towards the end of the campaign. That is what it looked like. And all this happened before the election. So the voters would have definitely seen everything unfolding. And as a result, even the strongest of TMC candidates, such as Churchill Alima, who has been an MLA several times and who has also been Chief Minister for a very short duration, his daughter, and Kiran Kandolkar, his wife, who were supposed to be strong candidates, did not win at all, or were nowhere close to winning. In 3 places, TMC had candidates who were trailing, who were in second place, but nowhere was it neck and neck.
Right.
So that was that, and what the future of TMC in Goa really depends on whether TMC wants to have a future in Goa, whether the TMC national leadership wants to have a future in Goa, and for that they will have to do what Aam Aadmi Party did, which is stay in the state, contest local elections, build their organization ground up. And Aam Aadmi Party has seen the results of its work over the last 5 years in Goa, where it's got 2 seats this time. It's opened its account, so that really depends up to the TMC.
Well, Angana, what about in Manipur? Will we see Biren Singh as return as the chief minister, or is the party thinking of going with the Assam model, and we will see a new face?
That remains unclear as of now. There are several contenders for the CM's position, though. We have Bishwajit Singh, who, as we know, was in fact one of the early recruits of the BJP in the state, and he's sort of been at loggerheads with Biren over the CM's position. He's been a cabinet minister. We have Khemchand Singh, who was the assembly speaker. We also have Govind Das, who was a former Congress chief, then defected to the BJP last year. But most people I spoke to say that if the BJP manages a majority, there is a high chances that Biren is likely to be propped up as the CM. But given that these leaders also hold some kind of clout within the party, I think the High Command will tread very carefully when it comes to choosing the next chief minister in the state.
Well, I have another question for Shikha. We will end with that. Shikha, PGV rallies, Priyanka Gandhi Vada's rallies translated into nothing. Do you think she could have been better suited for Uttarakhand, Punjab and Goa states with better organization? Can you just talk a little about how exactly has the Congress also felt?
Well, the Congress, if we go by the numbers, I mean, keep the narrative one side, and the other side, if you look at the ground, they're down to 2. They're leading only in 2 seats at the moment, and so which actually means that they're losing the ground they had already won in the previous election of 2017. So it was already being said that it is going to be a decisive kind of election for the Congress as well as the BSP. I will also mention the BSP, which is only leading on 1 seat at the moment. So both the parties were looking at retaining their ground, whatever they have lost, and sort of see an increase in it. But clearly we see on the ground that despite the entire campaign and the focus on women empowerment and how the entire campaign was focused on the half population, it seems that the Congress's pitch to the female voters also did not translate into vote gain on the ground. And in fact, I would go on to also mention that CM Yogi Adityanath in his speech went on to especially thank the female voters of the state and said that it is possibly majorly because of them that the BJP is coming back to power. So clearly, campaign aside, it is definitely not translating into vote gain for the Congress at all, and it has to really see how it can reinvent itself further. And what else? They really have to see how they can ensure a further vote gain in the future. But that is also another 5 years in the future.
Well, thank you so much for your valuable analysis. Please do follow their stories. They have been, reporting from different states. You can read them on our print website. At the same time, do follow their video stories on our YouTube channel. Do subscribe to our YouTube channel too. Thank you so much for joining.